Next week, this House will be asked to make one of the most momentous parliamentary decisions. We will be asked to support my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister's Brexit deal. Each and every one of us will have to make a choice which will determine the future of the United Kingdom. And I am clear that the deal on the table is the best option available for ensuring an orderly exit from the European Union, and the best option for delivering the Brexit that people voted for in the referendum. Mr. Speaker, the deal will have a significant impact on the UK's immigration system, and it will protect EU citizens' rights. Concern over uncontrolled immigration from the EU was a major factor in the decision to leave the EU. People wanted control over immigration. They wanted future decisions on UK immigration policy to be taken in this country and by this Parliament. And they wanted immigration brought down to sustainable levels. And that is what this deal delivers. Just before Christmas, I published the Immigration White Paper, which set out the government's plans in more detail. This drew heavily on the advice of the Independent Migration Advisory Committee, to whom I repeat my thanks for their thorough and comprehensive analysis. I will take a couple of interventions. I think there's one from there, then I'll come there.
I'm grateful to the Home Secretary for giving way. I'm grateful for him for beginning his remarks by confirming that a major and possibly the major factor in the referendum was immigration. He'll be aware that yesterday, when my honourable friend from Perth and North Perthshire stood almost exactly here and said exactly the same thing, he was held down by protest from Conservative backbenchers, some of whom are still here today. Does he have any indication why it is that when it comes from the Secretary of State for the Home Department, his backbenchers accept it, when the same truth is told by the SNP, it gets held down in protest? Is it that they only like to hear things from themselves and they can't face accepting the truth from anybody else?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the moment the honourable gentleman was referring to, I was here in the chamber yesterday. I don't recognise that description at all. What I do recognise is that in this House, over a number of years, there's been debates on immigration, and one of the issues that people, that honourable members have reflected from their constituents, is a concern over increasing levels of immigration and a need to take more control, and that is exactly what this deal delivers. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I'm very grateful to the Home Secretary for giving way so early in his speech. The number one priority for most countries, particularly in Asia, when doing trade deals, is to loosen the immigration policies of the UK government so they can get more people working and living in this country. So given the Home Secretary has confirmed that the government stands by its policy of cutting net migration to tens of thousands, how does he propose reconciling that number with trade deals with other countries?
Well, I think what the honourable gentleman has highlighted is that because we are leaving the EU, we can actually contemplate for the first time having our own trade deals with other countries, such as in Asia or elsewhere in the world. And when such trade deals are struck, there are clearly deals to be made on services and the trade of goods, and each time we would look carefully to do whatever it takes to work in the British national interest in striking new trade deals. Now, I want to make some progress, and then just the honourable gentleman, then I'll make some progress.
Grateful. Will it take this opportunity to condemn the leaflet put out by Vote Leave during the campaign, saying that 75 million Turks would be coming into our country over the next few years?
Mr. Speaker, we all know that particular information was completely incorrect, and there are members of Vote Leave at the time that have also spoken against that particular leaflet. So we don't want to rerun the debate, but that information was wrong, and I'm happy to say myself that of course it was. Mr. Speaker, I referred to the report and the advice from the Independent Migration Committee. What the MAC looked at in detail was the impact of European migration on the UK economy and society, and they produced recommendations based on their analysis. The White Paper was also informed by my own discussions with honourable and right honourable members, as well as businesses and civil society groups up and down the country. The White Paper outlined our intention to build a new immigration system founded on the principle that entry to the UK should be on the basis of skill rather than nationality, and that the existing automatic preference for EU citizens will end. Alongside this, I also introduced the Immigration Bill. The bill is a key step to ending free movement once and for all. For the first time in over 40 years, we will have full control over our borders. The decisions over who comes to the UK will be firmly in our hands. We will ensure that all people coming into this country will need to have permission to do so. But control over immigration does not mean closing our door or turning our back on immigration. Far from it. Our country is far stronger because of immigration. It's stronger economically, culturally, socially, stronger in every way because of immigration. And I am determined to continue to have an immigration system that welcomes the very best talent from across the world, helping us to build an open, welcoming and outward-looking post-Brexit Britain. I will give way to my honourable friend.
I thank the Home Secretary for giving way. He'll be well aware of the immense contribution of citizens from around the world, but in particular the EU in Worcestershire, where they make an immense contribution to the local economy. The deal on the table, though, gives them the reassurance and comfort that they have the right to stay, that they are welcome, and that that is the best to give them the peace of mind. Does he agree?
Mr. Speaker, of course I agree absolutely with my friend, especially when it comes to Worcestershire, our home county, and I will be turning to that specific point in a few minutes, and I will give way to the honourable lady.
I listen very closely to what the Secretary of State just said right now about the benefits of immigration. He will know that there are many pressures on our public services up and down this country, in particular on our National Health Service. And already it is so difficult, particularly for GP surgeries, for example, to recruit people from across Europe or from beyond Europe. And their concerns lie in that post-March 29th, they will have to pay an inordinate amount and have to spend an incredible amount of time processing the documents in order to get the doctors that we so desperately need, because we have a shortage of GPs and many other healthcare professions. We have a vacancy rate of 10% in our National Health Service.
First of all, the honourable lady is absolutely right to talk about the benefits to our public services, the health service from immigration. So in terms of doctors and nurses, for example, that's already been partly recognised with the change that I made last year to the Tier 2 cap, removing nurses and doctors from the cap. But this new immigration system, as is set out in the White Paper, and it refers specifically to benefits for our public sector, I think is perfectly compatible with the needs of our public sector. Mr. Speaker, the White Paper also sets out proposals for a secure and streamlined border. EU visitors will be able to come to the UK without a visa and will be able to continue to use e-gates. But in keeping with our position that the EU should not automatically receive preferential treatment, we announced at the end of last year that the use of e-gates would be extended later this year to nationals of Australia, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea and the United States. This is evidence that the UK is open for business and committed to ensuring the swiftest possible entry for visitors. I'll make some progress and I'll come back to the Honourable in a moment. In line with the Migration Advisory Committee's advice, our future immigration system will also contain a route for skilled workers, and we will be expanding the definition of skilled workers to encompass those in mid-skilled occupations too. The route will be uncapped, and we are removing the resident labour market test for highly skilled workers. The Migration Advisory Committee argued that this burdened businesses with unnecessary bureaucracy and was ineffective. Both of these changes will greatly assist businesses and speed up processes. We'll also retain the protections which exist for British workers, such as the skills charge. And for intermediate skilled jobs, we will be engaging with employers and businesses and consider whether a form of the resident labour market test would still be appropriate. I will.
I thank the Secretary of State for giving way. He's been very generous with his time. But does he envisage with this sort of approach, how would it work with the likes of someone, say, such as Steve Jobs' dad, who came, I think, from Syria, how would people like that actually come into this country and actually reflect the future prosperity and wealth of this nation?
Well, if the honourable gentleman bears with me as I make some progress through my remarks, I think he will be able to see what routes of entry we have for those who bring talent and skill to our country. Mr. Speaker, the Migration Advisory Committee has recommended that the salary threshold for the skilled worker route is £30,000, and there has, of course, been a lively debate already on that particular point. We will be running a 12-month process of engagement with business, with employers, with universities and others, and only at the conclusion of that work will we determine the level at which the threshold should be set. And in any case, we will retain the shortage occupation list, which allows for a lower threshold in jobs such as nurses, where there are shortages. There will also be a new route for workers at any skill level, but only on a temporary basis for a temporary period. This will allow businesses to have the staff they need as we move to the new immigration system, but it also gives them a clear incentive to invest more in training young British people now. Access to low-skilled labour from abroad should never be a substitute for investment in the skills of British people. Our new system will ensure that it is not. Members of this House have pointed out that agriculture has a particular reliance on migrant labour, and I have listened carefully to these concerns, and we will be piloting a seasonal agricultural workers scheme in the spring, and this announcement has already been well received. I will.
I'm very, very grateful for him giving way. What evidence does he have that employers aren't already trying through apprenticeships and other schemes to train local talent from young people? For example, in the construction industry in Oxfordshire, they tell me they are desperate to, but they can't do it with the local population alone. What evidence does he have that it's the case that people aren't training young people from this country and that they aren't trying, in fact, to do both?
Well, the Honourable Lady asked about evidence, and right at the start of my remarks, I referred to the Migration Advisory Committee, which is an independent body which went out and did a lot of research on the impact of European migration. So that's one point of evidence. The report was published in September. It sounds like the Honourable Lady hasn't read that report. I suggest she does. There's a lot of evidence on these issues in that report. But it is also self-evident for many employers that for some of them that it is all too easy to reach out and get labour from abroad when they could actually look at domestic labour and invest in skills, and that is not happening at the right scale we want to see, and this immigration system will absolutely encourage that. I will make some progress and then I'll take some further interventions. The white paper also sets out that the UK will continue to be open and welcoming to international students. Numbers of international students at our universities are currently at record levels, and I can reiterate that there will be no cap on the number of international students that we accept. This will mean that more students will get the opportunity to enjoy the world-class education that our universities have to offer. And to help our universities to compete for the best talent around the world and to help our economy, we are also increasing the period for which international students in higher education can remain in the UK at the end of their studies, giving them greater opportunities to find skilled work. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I'm very grateful to the Secretary for giving way. On the point of availability of alternative British workers, what does he say to Hospitality UK, for example, who point out that there aren't enough unemployed young Londoners to fill the post if just 15% of the current hotel workforce were not available through either visa restrictions or leaving the European Union, or to, in rural areas, to farmers who are desperate for a large, low-skilled fruit-picking workforce that simply isn't available in the local community?
Mr. Speaker, what I would say to the hospitality sector and others that would have a concern about the end of freedom of movement is that it is perfectly possible to have your own independent immigration policy without freedom of movement, as many other countries do with successful hospitality sectors, and to cater for the needs of all sectors. And that is what this balanced package, that's what this immigration package achieves. And we have been speaking to many different industrial sectors, including that sector. We'll continue to listen, but I believe that what we have set out absolutely will meet their needs. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
For giving way. He's just said that there will be no cap on international students, but yet the government is including international students in its migration targets. So how is he going to square that circle?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, the decision about what's included in immigration statistics or what is not included is an independent decision for the Office of National Statistics. I have discussed it with them, and we have, last year, we asked the Migration Advisory Committee to also look into the issue. Their recommendation was actually to keep the number in statistics, reflecting the fact that students, although most students would, at the end of their studies, most students leave the country, that it does have an impact on infrastructure and public services in the country. That said, I'm very sympathetic to that issue, but I would just take this opportunity to remind her that it is an independent decision for the Office of National Statistics. On this point,
very grateful to the Home Secretary. He is being incredibly generous. So the Home Secretary in the last few minutes has said no cap on international students, hospitality sector will be fine, agriculture will be fine, trade deals will be fine, despite the #1 priority for most countries in a trade deal to loosen up the visa regime. So how can any of that, and be honest with the public, it's about time the government started to be honest with the public, how can any of that be compatible with cutting net migration to tens of thousands? It's a lie, isn't it?
Order. For the avoidance of doubt, the honourable gentleman isn't suggesting that a minister would lie in this chamber. For one moment.
The manifesto pledge of cutting net migration to tens of thousands seems, on the basis of the answers, to be the lie, not the minister himself. He can
grateful. He's what, sorry?
Clarify that when he comes to the dispatch box.
Situation, but there is no allegation of personal dishonour against the Home Secretary. We're grateful. The Home Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, by focusing on higher skilled migration and not low skilled migration, this package is perfectly capable of reducing immigration. Indeed, I believe it will, to much lower, much more sustainable levels. Mr. Speaker, another very important aspect of our future immigration system is that it's designed to meet the needs of the entire United Kingdom. Immigration is a reserved matter, but it's important that we take into account the particular circumstances of different parts of the UK. That is why we will continue with our policy of a shortage occupation list to meet the needs of Scotland, and we will also be considering similar measures for Wales. In recognition of Northern Ireland's very particular position as the only part of the UK which will have a land border with the EU, we are also asking the MAC to compile a separate shortage occupation list for Northern Ireland. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to reaffirm the importance of our relationship with the Republic of Ireland. We are long-standing friends, allies and partners, and we will preserve the common travel area as well as the rights which Irish citizens enjoy. There is an unbreakable bond between the people of the UK and the Republic of Ireland, and that will never change. Together, these changes will deliver a system which backs employers, gives them access to highly skilled workers, whilst also ensuring them to drive up productivity and wages, and one which supports public services that we all rely on, giving them access to the skilled workers that they need. Now, Mr. Speaker, what I have...
The Home Secretary,
I will.
Very quickly, he said he could never contemplate anything that would put Northern Ireland in a different position. Why then does the withdrawal agreement in the backstop proposals specifically do that and create a border down the Irish Sea, the government having pledged repeatedly that they would not even contemplate such a thing, but it's now in the agreement in black and white in the Northern Ireland Protocol?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend will know, and he makes an observation about the withdrawal agreement. Of course it includes the backstop, but the government's intention is to avoid the backstop altogether. And even if there was a need to have we hadn't reached a final agreement within the 2-year period, which I believe we absolutely can, there's an option for the government to extend the implementation period, which would avoid the issue that my honourable friend has highlighted. Now, Mr. Speaker, what I have outlined so far are some significant changes to our immigration system which will be implemented in a phased approach from 2021. However, in some other areas, there will be continuity rather than change. EU citizens already living here will continue to be able to live their lives here much as they do now. We value their significant contribution to the UK, and whatever happens, as we've said many times before, we want them to stay. We know how important our EU friends are to our economy, to our society, to our families, to our history, and also to our future. We've launched a series of trials of the EU settlement scheme, and I'm pleased to say that they have all gone well so far. The scheme will be open to all EU citizens living in the UK by the 30th of March and will be run in the event of deal or no deal. The scheme is designed to be short, to be simple and user-friendly, and we need everyone to participate. Now, some right honourable and honourable members have questioned why we need such a scheme in the first place. One of the reasons that we need it is to have a clear picture of who is in the country. And I saw firsthand from Windrush the problems of not having a comprehensive registration scheme, and we cannot allow something like that ever to happen again. The decision made many decades ago not to have a suitable registration scheme for Commonwealth citizens in the UK was in hindsight a huge mistake, and I will not repeat it on my watch. There will be a proper, easy-to-use scheme in place for our EU friends so that their rights are protected. We will have to communicate this clearly to ensure the scheme is fully used, but our message to EU citizens throughout is absolutely clear. Deal or no deal, we want you to stay. Although we have made it very clear that after Brexit, EU citizens will be able to continue their lives much as before, not all EU member states have made a similar commitment to British citizens living in their countries. In fact, there are a number of countries who have given no public assurances of the status of British nationals in their countries in the event of no deal. Mr. Speaker, I think this is unacceptable, and I urge them to do so without any further delay. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have outlined today what this deal means for immigration. For the first time in a generation, we will be able to build an immigration system that is designed in Britain, made in Britain, and serves only our national interest. The deal protects not only EU citizens living in the UK, but also UK nationals living in the EU. But it also goes much further. It's about protecting our economy, our security, and creating an immigration system of which we have full control. Yes, the deal is a compromise. No one is claiming that it is perfect, but it is the only deal on offer that provides an orderly exit from the EU. And the fact is that the clock is ticking. Now is the time for everyone to get behind this deal. It's in our hands to decide if we want this deal, no deal, or indeed no Brexit at all. And I know which option I prefer, and I urge all honourable and right honourable members to join me in supporting this deal.